My name is Jim Hermann. I've represented Social Security disability claimants and veterans claimants for the past 25 years, and I want to give you some insight related to working part-time or full-time and applying for Social Security disability. The first thing that the decision makers at the agency are going to look at is whether or not you are working at what they call substantial gainful activity, frequently abbreviated as SGA. SGA has a monthly amount. As of January 1st this year, 2021, that amount is $1,310, $1,310 a month. It's important to remember that Social Security Administration is always looking at gross pay, not take-home pay. You and I are looking at take-home pay because that's obviously what you have to pay your bills and take care of your financial obligations. But no, they're looking at gross pay. Now, being over the 1,310, 1,310 mark for say 1 month may not be in and of itself something that would preclude you from qualifying for Social Security disability benefits. As a matter of fact, generally and typically we are able to average your monthly earnings over typically, let's say, a 12-month time period. So who knows? You may have a job that you've worked, made a couple $1,000s gross pay for the month, and then you're not working. You might be working for temporary agencies or whatever your circumstance is. So there is that option for that. Social Security Administration is the first thing they're going to do is ask you for payroll records. Typically, taking pictures with your cell phone of your pay stubs is generally not considered acceptable to the Social Security Administration. It's best for you to get a payroll report from your employer, and then we'll forward that report to the agency. At your hearing, the administrative law judge will ask you, you're working part-time, you're working 20, 25 hours a week. If the employer would offer you 40 hours a week, what would be your response? And obviously, if you say that you're able to work 40 hours a week, they're going to find that you're not qualified for disability benefits. I'm not suggesting that you misrepresent that or anything else, because it's important to be totally honest and totally upfront with particularly decision makers at the agency. The other elements that become very significant and may be able to create a path for approval for you have to do primarily with what the agency thinks of as special accommodations. I'm going to list those for you. It's very important that you keep these in mind. And by the way, the Social Security Administration cannot consider whether or not you can get a job. They can only consider whether or not you are physically, mentally, and emotionally able to work full-time. All of their regulations turn on full-time employment, and whether or not you would be able to get that job and whether or not you'd be able to keep that job for a reasonable period of time. But here are the accommodations that exist in the regulations that might very well provide a path for approval for you. Number one, I'll basically read these so that there's no misinterpretation, but you're required and received special assistance from other employees in performing your work. You were allowed, number two, to work irregular hours or take frequent rest periods. And by the way, the agency will not consider whether or not you have problems with transportation, with getting to work, or not being able to get to work. Again, Um, a determination for disability is just that. It's all about disability. It's not about whether or not you're able to get to work or anything of that sort. It's about, again, to repeat for emphasis, whether or not you can physically, mentally, and emotionally do the work and do it on a full-time basis. Then number two, were you allowed to work irregular hours or take frequent rest periods? If you were, and you can, ideally you need to get a statement, a letter from your employer substantiating these special accommodations that I'm summarizing for you. And then number three, were you provided any special equipment, or were you assigned work especially suited to your impairment or impairments? So that would obviously, if you're getting that kind of accommodation, that would typically preclude you from working on a competitive basis in an otherwise competitive job market. Number four, were you able to work only because of specially arranged circumstances? For example, other people helped you prepare or get you to and from work. I know that sounds contradictory to what I just said, but it's still, that portion of the statement, the key part of it is whether or not people helped you prepare for getting to work, primarily. It's not necessarily, the transportation issue. And then number five, were you permitted to work at a lower standard of productivity or efficiency than other employees? In other words, is the employer cutting you some slack because of the either medical, physical, or emotional impairments that you're dealing with? And when I ask people that question at hearing, if they're not properly prepared, they'll say, "Oh no, they weren't cutting me any slack. I had to do the job." Again, I want you to be totally honest, but on the other hand, give yourself the benefit of the doubt and don't shoot yourself in the foot. And then number six, were you given the opportunity to work despite your impairment or impairments because of perhaps a family relationship or a past association with the employer, or your employer's concern for your welfare? In other words, they're cutting you some slack, they're giving you a special deal. You may have known a family member, or you may know the employer that really helped you get that job, and those are the main ingredients that the agency is looking for. But related, they will also look at, for example, if you're self-employed, supervisory, managerial, advisory, or other significant personal services that you perform as a self-employed individual may show that you're able to do substantial gainful activity. So that should give you an overview of the path related to special accommodations. And of course, as always, I hope this is useful information to you. If it is, give me a thumbs up on YouTube, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thank you for viewing.